You are now live. Go right ahead.
Okay. This has got to be one of the most interesting teleconferences I've ever participated in. So far, we're, 45 minutes in, and we spent half an hour talking about technology, our own technology. We can get better than this. Really, we can get better. Okay, everyone, I think, has actually come independently, as I'm assessing this, to basically the same conclusion, that we're not going to have an official, full-dress court, sit-down, this is your life, Ralph Edwards type disclosure. I think David is saying this. I think Bill is saying this. I think Kerry is saying this. Where I part company is I'm really, really not in the camp of listening to insiders. When I laid out my opening statement a few minutes ago, one of the things that I thought would really resonate with people is the idea that as disclosure comes of age, as we are supposedly in the throes of it, if control is to be maintained, as Bill very accurately said, confusion must be maintained. People must be kept fearful. They must be kept uncertain. They must be... What I'm finding from the Facebook feedback is that people are desperately looking for mommy and daddy. I mean, there is this overwhelming urge out there for someone to simply sit down and tell them reality. And that ain't the way it's going to happen. In fact, I can probably give some evidence that was never in the cards, because if you know anything about our work over the last 10, 20, 30 years, you know we have discovered what we call the ritual calendar, that NASA, as one agency, appears to be involved in disclosing little tidbits, little maddening little snippets, windows of tiny mini disclosure on this or that topic or this or that planet or this or that artifact or whatever, and they do it according to, as Mike Barra and I documented in Dark Mission, a ritual timetable. As I stand back and I look at what's going on now, and I see us rushing headlong toward this penultimate date of 2012, I cannot help but think, based on my own work, and now supported by some things that David said a little while ago, that the actual creation of the United States of America, the country that we all revere, those of us who are citizens and who are living here, that we look for to lead, to provide leadership, to provide some kind of light, through this darkness, that we see strong evidence, and I think David was very specific in terms of some of the particulars, that the very foundation of the United States was put in place for this time. I'm fascinated that David's work and mine, totally separate, totally independent, are independently confirming this, and Bill's comments are basically right on. If that's true, if the founding fathers and the controllers in old Europe, when the United States was conceived as a colony of the crown, if all of that really was a foreshadowing of where we are now on the eve of this date, 2012, then I think we need to look more carefully at the interconnection between so-called disclosure events, i.e. UFOs, ETs, that kind of thing, and the much more substantive and much deeper puzzle of what is this planet facing, which it seems to face roughly every 13,000 years, which is connected with celestial alignments, the center of the galaxy, change in the physics, change in consciousness, change in civilizations. In other words, we're coming up to this big event again in terms of the alignments, and so to me, it is totally de rigueur that we should see a definite cross-correlation between the ET realities that we each separately have been pursuing and the 2012 phenomenology, which is coming up fast on the inside lane, and everybody's overarching question, when are they going to tell us the truth? Well, the fact is, if we're dealing with esoteric mystery school type philosophy, and I know David wanted to get into some philosophy this afternoon, I don't think you can ever have a spokesperson officially telling us the truth, because it would violate the first precept of these mystery schools, which is when the student is ready, the teacher shows up. Well, if you look at this incredible accelerating rate of disclosure of all kinds of specific tidbits, snippets, for the observing, for the discerning student, it's obvious now we're in the middle of disclosure. It's impossible to hide our history, to hide who we really are, to hide who's out there, how many other civilizations have preceded us, how many people have walked this path trying to make this transition that we are as we come up on 2012. But for most people in the population, looked at it demographically, looked at it in terms of consciousness, if you broach these subjects, they give you this blank stare. Now, the blank stares are becoming fewer and fewer. More and more people apparently are waking up that there's more to reality than the New York Times and CNN or Fox News. But if this disclosure process is what I think it is, grounded in the incredibly interesting history that David mentioned a few minutes ago, more like half an hour, then I think we are exactly where we should be on the disclosure curve, and the endpoint, the ultimate destination where things are going to become very clear to a lot of people who are paying attention is, of course, in 2012.
Okay, Richard, along the lines of this conference, we also talked about disclosing ourselves. So what I would like you to do at this point is, if you have some information to disclose, please do so.
Well, that's kind of an interesting term. Maybe I didn't get the memo. I'm not quite sure what you mean.
Okay, well, in what we were told before we started the conference, you had some things to tell people that you hadn't revealed in the past. That was my understanding.
Okay, I think there's been a miscommunication. I mean, look, we are constantly, because of the research, learning new things all the time. Specifics. For instance, I could go on for like half an hour on the weirdness going on around this so-called next to last shuttle mission, STS-133, and how it has been delayed unconscionably now into 2011, into maybe February, but maybe not. And the other night on Coast, I gave some people a kind of a thumbnail sketch as to what I thought might be going on, because there appears to be a real ritual calendar driving the train, and the numbers, the numerology that NASA loves to involve itself in, particularly those numbers involving 33 or any variance of 33, which refers, of course, to the highest level of initiation in Freemasonry, 33rd degree. But that's not, I don't think that's where people really want to go. I think they want a bigger picture. They want to know what it is they should be looking for, because, frankly, the last thing that I think you're going to see is Barack Obama on television in the Oval Office saying, "My fellow Americans, this is the way it is." I think it's going to be much more like what we have seen, only with more sharply pointed events. And I do think that Bill is right, that there could, in fact, be some kind of false flag or major incident that would kind of demand from people some kind of official response to give them a sense of well-being and that things are going to be okay. But, of course, that's not real disclosure. That's the spun kind. That's the intel variety. What I think we were supposed to discuss this afternoon is the indicators we see of the real stuff, which is, I'll give you just one example. A couple, 3 weeks ago, NASA held a press conference relating to the La Crosse impact mission that hit the moon about a year ago in October of 2009. It took them a year, even though it was right next door, for them to figure out the science results from their combined impactor and what they called a shepherding probe. Well, one of the astonishing results of that press conference was not only the discovery of an enormous amount of water in this South Pole crater on the moon that they hit with the spacecraft and did their analysis, but an equal amount of mercury, liquid metallic mercury, which gushed up in extraordinary quantities at the impact of this La Crosse spacecraft. Now, no one in the mainstream or anywhere else has even begun to discuss the implications of finding a huge